DPOs, your opinion matters. Help shape the future of privacy in the UK. Thank you for attending our webinar. My name is Nick Edwards. I'm the editorial director at the Data Protection World Forum, and my co-host today is Rob Masson, who's CEO of the DPO Centre. Now, the DPO Centre and the Data Protection World Forum, hi Rob, have come together to launch what we think is a major new initiative, a regular survey of data protection and privacy professionals in the UK, a kind of snapshot, if you will, about what the profession is thinking, what it's feeling. And because we're going to be doing that snapshot at regular intervals, it will add up over time to a really unique picture in real time of how the profession is developing. So I've said it's an important initiative, Rob. So what are some of the key things that you think you want to achieve with the survey?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, I think let's maybe start off by saying, I think we're very fortunate in the privacy industry in that it's already a very collaborative sector. So there's kind of lots of opportunities to network and exchange ideas, and I mean, obviously DPWF are very much integral in enabling that. But it is sometimes hard to gauge industry-wide opinion. I think we get pockets of opinion, but so especially in the kind of timely, fast-moving environment that we're living in. I mean, obviously the events of last week, as anybody will know in terms of Schrems 2, knows now very much how quickly things can change. And so the intention of the kind of initiative that we're putting together, the whole concept of the index, is that it's there to serve the industry kind of in that regard, in being able to give results and very detailed information about what's going on within the sector and where the important issues are. And it's there to act as a kind of consistent and hopefully accurate guide, and a barometer of opinions that are being expressed across the sector, but also across industries, industries and organisation sizes and so on. So, but we're also looking to provide quite some basic insight, into issues that are relevant to a DPO in their role. So we've got three main objectives for it, which I'll kind of work through as we go through this afternoon. But so it's basics, things like salary movements. So how much does someone in Manchester get paid compared to someone in central London, and it's also things like resource levels. So from the size of organisation you are, how do your resource levels and budgets kind of compare to someone in a larger or smaller organisation? And so do you insource or outsource data protection? What degree of buy-in do you get from your key sponsor within your organisation or your board and your C-suite? And so we hope to break all this down, to give you north and south divides, give you large and small organisations. What's the difference between biotech and construction? So everybody kind of gets to understand the issues in the sector in a much more detailed way than they would previously have done so. And it would have been slightly anecdotal on, kind of conversations with people, maybe the odd presentation you've seen. But, this is really our opportunity to give to the industry, some sort of definitive responses, definitive action, definitive guidance as to how, the issues that are relevant to us in the sector and how they're being reacted to. But it's also, we're there to give a wider voice. So it's not only what's going to help DPOs and their roles, it's not only what's going to help the industry in general move along, but it's also to give privacy and data protection a wider voice in the national press. So outside of just our sector. And it's very relevant information as to what's going on within the sector that is relevant and pertinent to what's going on kind of outside of the sector in terms of wider business management and decisions that are being made. And we can do that kind of regardless of industry sector or location or company size. We can just do it across the board.
Yeah, thanks, Robin. That's a really good introduction and really reflects the fact that it's something that we want to be practically useful for the industry itself, the people filling it in, as it were, but also those outside who we want to influence. Because you mentioned voice a couple of times. It's partly about as a profession matures, it can sometimes need a sort of collective voice. Certainly not the only reason we're doing it, but it's partly about that collective voice, isn't it?
Absolutely, and the profession continues to grow. I mean, and it's because the requirements and the complexity and the significance of data protection and the role of a data protection officer continues to grow, that it becomes more and more important. So, I mean, it's something we've seen across our DPO team. We've seen massive change, certainly in the last kind of 3 years, in terms of where the GDPR's kind of come in and affected the industry. We've seen how it's been absolutely necessary for the role of data protection officer to evolve over that period and deliver more and more. And they're expected to know more and be exposed to everything that's going on, within the sector. So, a key objective of the index is certainly to provide that kind of collective voice. But hopefully, due to the size and the breadth of the panel in terms of how many people and the span of which that they've come from, and the fact that we're looking to get responses on an ongoing basis. It's not just a one-off kind of, what do you think? There we go, there's a statistic. The whole idea of this is an index, and therefore over time, the response will be asking essentially, in a lot of cases, the same questions over and over again, so that we can monitor how things are evolving over time. So the index should add progressively ever greater weight and credibility to the collective voice, which in turn, in a way, supports the kind of continued elevation and the significance of the role within organisations. Again, to help that DPO have the necessary influence that they need to, but at the same time boost the importance of privacy as an industry, and further authority, standing, our collective objectives, as privacy professionals.
Exactly. Now, I'm going to ask you a few questions about.
Ooh, I think we might have lost your sound there.
Yeah, we've lost Nick Edwards' voice.
Okay.
Nick, could you try reconnecting, please?
I mean, just while hopefully he's coming back, I think the question I think he was going to go on to was, it's kind of assessing the impact of something like the coronavirus and kind of how the index itself is going to provide responses and information into how to kind of handle it. And it's what is the index going to do to assist and help the industry drive itself forward. And I think from our perspective, once we get that information, once we start gathering all of that data, and we can do it on an ongoing basis, so we can be asking the questions that are relevant and getting the opinions and managing it on an ongoing basis, so that we're very clear as to how the industry is moving and how opinions are changing, and what actions are being taken. These are all kind of things that we're looking to gain. So it's not just kind of individuals' opinions. It's very much the general opinion of an industry and what it's trying to achieve. And again, it's breaking that down into kind of how that compares across region and sector and organisation, so that one organisation's response might be in a certain direction, but another organisation in a different sector or of a different size or a different region and so on might be handling it quite appropriately in different ways. And I think the larger and the greater the depth of the index as we go, and as the questions kind of evolve over time, we're absolutely going to be able to provide quite a lot of guidance in that respect and hopefully steer the industry a little bit better.
Okay, I think I had some audio problems, Rob. So can you hear me now?
I can indeed, but I think we might have just answered your question. I winged it for a second there.
I assumed you answered it really well. Let's not let you do it again. So, but that was about coronavirus, yeah?
Yeah, that was the one.
Yeah, that's right. So
thankfully, I knew what you were going to ask.
Fantastic. The mystery of broadcast is revealed. We do discuss questions in advance. Another question that the survey asks is around budgets. So we know a lot of organisations are under pressure for budgets. They're tempting to start to cut costs in particular areas. And so we've asked the question about whether people are experiencing that. Is that something that you feel is a kind of a potential issue?
I mean, it is, absolutely. I think it's more so for maybe some industries than others. And it's likely that we're quite some way away from navigating our way in the right direction. So fundamentally, the insights that the index is going to be able to provide should be invaluable in helping the organisation or the industry kind of navigate its way.
And the other question, sort of topical, if you want to say that, topical question that we have is around Brexit and people's sense of how disrupted that will be in the run-up to the end of the transition period. Do you think that's we certainly get a lot of interest in anything we do around Brexit. Do you think that's the biggest issue facing data protection? Is that something that you'd expect a lot of people to, so I'm in a sense not just asking your opinion, but what you suspect the survey might come out with in terms of people's importance of the issue?
Sure. I mean, it's something that has to be on everyone's agenda. Anybody that's got cross-border transfers, it has to be something that organisations are considering. But the trouble is, alongside so many other things, obviously, our good friend Max Schrem's decision last week obviously adds to that. It makes even more complex. So we're dealing with our COVID responses. We're now dealing with the impact of the Schrems 2 decision. And of course, we can't drop the ball on something like Brexit. So obviously, a lot of the issues around Brexit are still unknown in terms of we don't have our adequacy agreement, either positive, negative, or not at all. And so, we're not quite entirely sure what we're doing in terms of our kind of cross-border transfers. But these are all kind of things that the index will be intended to assist with, because we're going to be asking the appropriate questions to be able to gauge how the actions and the opinions that the DPOs are facing and how they're addressing them, in order to help then guide the other parts of the industry as to where they should be focusing much of their attention. So, but I mean, Brexit's such a nebulous thing. I mean, we're publishing some Brexit tips at the moment via our LinkedIn, kind of every couple of days, just to kind of help people just get a sense of the issues that they need to be considering. Some of them aren't relevant. Generally, if you're not exporting data into the EU, then it's obviously much less of an issue if you're a UK-only focused data organisation. But you still need to consider it. You still need to confirm that is the case. But there's things like EU representation. There's the loss of the one-stop shop. There's updates to breach procedures, and all these kind of things that organisations are going to need to consider. But hopefully, using Brexit as an example, it's the kind of thing where over time we will evolve the questions within the index to see how opinions are changing and where the focus on certain subjects is evolving. And therefore, hopefully, help DPOs to kind of work out what really are the important issues and where the focus, should be made to make sure that they're dedicating their time appropriately.
Yeah, and then quite a few of the questions that we're getting, comments or questions, really support what you're saying in terms of people's interest in this area. And we don't have time to get into that debate. In a sense, one of the good things is that the survey, as we go forward, will be a good platform in terms to have. So having asked the opinion of the industry, we will then have various forums whether that's online or physical, for people to discuss and really give their views as human beings. So perhaps as and I may maybe come back to the odd question, but in terms of almost not to wrap up exactly, but I want people to sign up to a survey and commit to doing it every quarter. It's really quick. It's not a big commitment, and I'm sure you do. So if there was something that you could say, Rob, to them, basically, what's your message about why people should want to take part?
Yep. Well, I think the first thing to stress is that all the responses are kind of confidential. So if you do join the panel, and I would absolutely recommend and ask all the DPOs that are watching us now to do so. You'll be sent a link at the end of this webinar in order to be able to do so. But any response you give will be entirely confidential. So none of the information you provide will ever be linked back to you as an individual or your role within your organisation. So you are hopefully you feel confident to kind of give a candid view as to what's happening within your organisation, because we are asking in certain situations kind of to a degree, what's the level of compliance as far as you're concerned within your organisation, for example. It's that, and we need everyone to have the confidence that that clearly isn't going to be published. That kind of view is not going to be published individually. So, but it's the aggregate results are are really important. So, but we will be giving early access to the participants. So we hope to be publishing using, for example, last Thursday in Privacy, a DPWF event, to keep people updated as to what's going on. But we will also be making the results available to the participants on a slightly early bird kind of basis, so that you can see how the industry, how the opinions within the industry are evolving to a degree before anybody else. And hopefully it just makes you that little bit more informed as to what's happening. Hopefully, it's an opportunity to expand your influence as a data protection officer. I mean, obviously, you may be one person within an organisation. You're able to influence that organisation, and I'm sure extremely positively. But it's also being a member of the index means that you are actively influencing the sector as a whole, because we fully intend to build this to the point where it does become like a go-to set of results. It's kind of the opinion of the industry as a whole. And because we're keeping it fairly pure in terms of data protection officers, it's quite, we're trying not to get into the too much wider compliance areas. It's very much in terms of data protection compliance. And so the panel that we're looking to recruit, will be very focused on the data protection officer role. So obviously we're looking to attract sufficiently large numbers, to make sure that we're giving actionable and reliable kind of results. But we are requiring that you meet certain criteria in order to be part of it. So just very briefly, actually, just if and when you do come to complete the survey, it consists of 3 parts. So the first part is just the screening questions. That's kind of enabling us to make sure that you have the right kind of role and have the right kind of sector that you're coming from. But very short few questions. But then it's the base panel question. So this is a panel survey. So it's very important that the participants realise that they're joining a panel, and therefore we're going to be asking your opinion over time, and not hugely regularly. There will be the basic questions will be quarterly, but at the same time we might ask pertinent questions on a monthly basis. Just we want to get a quick opinion as to what does the industry think. I mean, Schrems 2 last week would have been a perfect example. So there might be an element of ad hoc questions, but generally speaking, what we're looking to do is to have that panel so that we can monitor and create the index over time.
Great, thanks, Rob. We've got time for a few questions, and I'll pick and choose. And as I say, some of the comments and questions are really about the issues themselves. They're about Brexit, they're about coronavirus, and we may need to come back to that. And also, there will be future webinars, future seminars where we'll be actually digging into the results. But in terms of the actual sort of nuts and bolts of this survey, so one question is, how will the index be differentiated from all the other platforms that provide these types of services. And of course,
Yeah.
it was not the only survey in the world, of course, but I think we would differentiate it.
I mean, I think that the key point here is that it's not just a survey. This is not just something we're doing, flash in the pan, ask a bunch of questions, go, here we go, here's the results. But the entire purpose of this is to build a panel and continuously monitor people's opinions over time. And that, as far as I'm aware, does not exist in the privacy sector. I mean, obviously, there's lots of industry bodies and so on that are constantly doing research and asking people's opinions. But where this index differs is the fact that it's that panel. We're asking the same people to essentially the same questions, a few new ones each time, but generally the same core questions, so that we can provide the ups and downs of opinion over time, and then be able to slice and dice it according to region and sector and an organisation size.
Yeah.
I think actually is that I haven't mentioned it is completely free to join. There's no cost involved in doing so. In fact, there will be some benefits that we'll communicate over time for being a panel member, and obviously access to the details is most certainly one of them.
Yeah, and absolutely. We'd hope that if you were a panelist, you would get, whether it's early access to the data or maybe just a richer set of data. And of course, as it builds over time, that data will be useful for people's own planning and the way that they think about their role. There's a couple of very straightforward questions that people had around how it works. So yes, it's anonymous. In terms of how it works from a privacy policy point of view and a data controller point of view, we will make all that detail available to panelists. In terms of, just to reiterate something that Rob said earlier, when the results come out, we'll obviously be publishing them in a report. That report, in a sense, will get more interesting as we go forward, as we're able to look over time. We will be press releasing it. The point of press releasing it is that it gets those messages out to the wider audience. So we're not just talking to each other, as it were, we're talking to the world out there. And it says, will there be an opportunity for face-to-face panel discussions once we're able to? Well, that's not a planted question, but that's kind of our business, or part of our business. So definitely, whether it would be strictly part of I don't want to sort of speculate live, as it were, but you could imagine if we were running a conference or a physical event, that something that spoke to this survey, spoke to the panel, perhaps even the members, but we do want it to be anonymous. It would be, probably a really interesting way of doing it.
I think in that respect, Story. I mean, there are a number of things that we're looking, a number of benefits, and privileges of membership that we're looking to create, and working with Data Protection World Forum, obviously all the events that you choose. Once we go back to face-to-face events, of course, then we will be looking to do certain things with panel members in those events, and if that means having certain forums, for specific people to meet and discuss issues in more detail, then that absolutely is one of the potential routes that we can go, and the added value that membership of the panel is going to bring.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, so the criteria, and by the way, the criteria is clearly stated in the survey. So, and I mean, essentially, if your work is predominantly UK focused and your job is very predominantly based on data protection, then you are eligible. Is that the best way of describing it, Rob? Would you go along with that?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, I think the key thing is that we want it to be a panel of data protection officers. So I appreciate that the job title data protection officer isn't always specific, as it were. There's people around. Obviously, if you don't need to have one, then you're not going to have a DPO role. You're going to have a data protection manager or something like that. So, but that's all fine. But we don't necessarily, on this particular initiative, we're not looking maybe for people involved in FCA compliance or something, or other forms of compliance. We're trying to keep it as pure as possible for the pure reason that obviously the more pure the panel, the more dedicated and specific the results will be. And valuable they will be for other data protection officers or other members of the panel.
Excellent. And then just maybe as a final question, because it's an interesting one, someone asked, would we have to keep our membership private? It would be good kudos status to be able to share. Well, I don't think, Rob, that, well, I won't anticipate your answer. Should somebody say that they're a panel member?
Well, I would hope so. I mean, obviously, we will try to, there's a range of things that we're looking at to bolster kind of panel membership. I mean, just something for your email signature, or like a pin badge you can wear at an event, that kind of thing. Because we want to foster ownership and a membership, and a sense of belonging because we are trying to do something that we hope is going to be really valuable for the industry. And we want people to feel a sense of ownership, membership, be proud of being part of it, because you are helping to shape the industry. And and if that means obviously being able to talk about it, then yeah, absolutely. I certainly don't see any reason why we'd be restricting people from saying they're a member of it. It's more to a degree a personal preference, but if anything, we're constantly looking to grow it and to encourage other people, other data protection officers, to become a member. And if that's generated via word of mouth, then great.
Okay, well, we've actually got a very, very fitting final question, which is, what are the next steps now to get involved? I think I can answer that, and maybe Rob can add to it. Essentially, if you're a registrant and you've ticked the box that says, I'd like to find out more, then we will be in touch. You'll be invited to fill in a survey, which in itself will be a qualification process as well. It's a very, very short process. We'll obviously also be marketing it more widely. The DPO Centre will be marketing it widely, and we would really hope to get a good number of people signed up literally in the next few days, so that we can begin to crunch the results and then add to it over time. So it really happens. It really will happen straight away, and we'll go from there. Rob, any last words, or do you feel that we've said enough?
Well, I mean, I think that it's important. I think we're going to publish some of the preliminary, just like some initial thoughts as to which way the direction's going next week, I believe, at last Thursday in Privacy. I think we've got an 11 o'clock slot. So, we obviously it's going to be very preliminary results because it's going to be reasonably small numbers and only the initial questions that we're asking. But we hope to have a kind of panel of DPOs on that session and talk about some of the issues that the questions are kind of raising and what that might mean for the sector as a whole. So. But I mean, I would say if you don't get an invitation or you forgot to tick that box, do look me up on LinkedIn. I think I've got kind of 7,000 or 8,000 of you on there already. But send me a message via LinkedIn, and I will absolutely be happy to forward the sign up link.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, thank you, Rob. Thank you for everybody that's attended. We'll obviously be following it with you and also the other people who were not able to attend. And if we've not had a chance to answer your question and we think we can provide an answer, then we'll do that a little bit later. And please get in touch either with Rob or myself if you want to know more. But there'll be plenty of information about it in the market. So I think we will wrap it there. So thank you very much for attending, and look forward to seeing you inside the index.
Thank you.